customer journey is not linear. So if you're giving people different types of interesting content throughout their customer journey, there's just more opportunities to build relationships with them, to kind of win them over.
Hey, Nycole, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, thank you.
How was your week so far?
It's been good. It's a busy week, but very good, very productive. Thank you. How about yours?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. A bit tired today, but I don't know. Even the weather in New York has not been the best these days. So I feel that is I don't know about if that affects you, but it affects me a lot. So anytime that I wake up and it's like a bit gloomy, it's New York, so I should be used to right now. But it's always kind of difficult to start the week like that. But why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself? Usually we use these things called the map, basically just divided in three main areas. There is the mission. So this is like what we aim to achieve, your achievements, anything that you want to share with us in terms of milestones, and then your purpose. So in addition to the mission, that is the what do you aim to achieve, also is the why do you do what you do.
Yeah, no, I love it. For me, I've been in marketing for almost 20 years at this point. So I truly love the space. I'm very passionate about really leading with a customer first mindset. Truly my goal has always been kind of getting into, the C-suite and really kind of building and affecting a larger brand and how, kind of they create and build for their customers. How they build the relationships, how they're reaching them, really all of that. My degree is in psychology and sociology, so that has a big part of, I think, how I think and why I'm so focused on the behavior of the customer. So, yeah, very, very, kind of mission driven in terms of just marketing as a whole. In terms of achievements, I feel very lucky to have had a very diverse career. Early on, I said I never wanted to look back when I was 40 and, think that I missed out or didn't try something. So, I've definitely had a lot of different kind of opportunities, from building and leading major agency practices in the social creator content space, to, kind of really building teams and programs from scratch in-house, to just having some cool jobs. I've started my career out for the White Sox when we won a World Series. So a big shout out there, which was really fun. Not necessarily my achievement, but, maybe I was good luck. And then, my purpose, again, it's just really focusing on building brands that, are making a difference, really kind of creating for the customer and making it something that is valuable for them. That's really kind of what makes me excited about the work that I do.
Fantastic. And tell me, how many years have you working specifically when it comes to influencer marketing? A few years, 10 plus?
Yeah, really since it's began. If you think about it, influencer marketing, in its infancy was not even just bloggers, but if you think about old school ambassadors and chat groups and, building that kind of stuff where I was doing that for nonprofits, and then really jumping into working with bloggers and then moving into more social when that became much more popular.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, right? Because every year is changing a lot, and 10 years ago was way different than it is now. 3 years is different than what is now. How did has influencer marketing evolved, in your opinion, looking at both on the brand side and also the creator side? Have you noticed anything? Of course, many differences that we said, but anything that got your attention?
Oh, yeah. It is so wildly different from, back in the day when I think people were thinking of influencers in terms of what is their size? And that was kind of the end all be all. If they were big, people thought they were influencers, and that's how they kind of found people to work with. To today where you're thinking about it in such different ways. You're thinking about, kind of not just, who they can reach, but are they reaching the right audience? How deep is their community? Are they super engaged? So really just how we even think about what an influencer is, and how to pick the right ones to work with is so vastly different. Also one of the biggest things, COVID really changed the game. It took us forward in such a different direction. I don't think TikTok would have been what it was, to be honest, without COVID, because everyone had nothing to do. We were all stuck inside. So that really brought to life a whole new group of like creators, influencers, people that weren't necessarily thinking about polished content, but they were just telling stories. And it really kind of emerged like this new kind of focus on just like really honest storytelling that didn't have to be like highly produced, like YouTube, which has obviously been doing it for a long time. So yeah, I just think it keeps changing. Some brands are doing a great job in thinking about influencer marketing in such a broader way and including it in much more of a kind of content marketing, like brand marketing mix versus really thinking about it in a silo. And then you've still got brands who really are still kind of catching up and it's very siloed. And surprisingly enough, you definitely still have brands that are thinking about the size of the creator versus are they the right fit for our brand? Are they going to really help us kind of get our message across and tell stories that make sense for us?
And so how would you recommend, like, suggest brands out there to find the right influencers? Let's go a bit more in detail about that. Like, could be quantitative analysis, qualitative, and so on. How do you approach that when you want to find the right matching ones for the brand?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, you've got to think about what do you want to achieve with your campaign? Like, is this an awareness campaign? Is this a sales campaign? Is this affiliate? Like, what are you doing with this? Because in order to get the right partners, you have to really understand what they would need to achieve. And not all partners, not all platforms can achieve the same goals. So you can't just say, like, let's go get 10 people. We love these people and use them for all of those campaigns. They're likely not going to work in the same way. So let's say you understand your goal. You truly understand also who are you trying to reach? Like, who is your target audience? Is it, millennials? Is it, Gen Z? Like, what is that group? You want to understand your goals, who you want to reach. Then you almost start to kind of reverse engineer when you think of influencers and think about who has the attention of the audience you want. Who can help you achieve the goal you want? Is that goal is sales? Who's someone that has that ability to authentically infuse a product, tell people about it, and really get them excited and see kind of that interest, even in like their comments, interest in whether it's like past sales metrics. If it's awareness, who again can kind of truly infuse the product, maybe storytell over a longer period of time. The product can show up in many ways in their content. But once you start to have those things, then you can really start to kind of build a list of what you want. And then you're really diving in, whether you have, platforms. We utilize Tagger, utilizing a platform, utilizing the channels in themselves and just kind of diving in to look to see like who really feels like a good fit.
Oh, very, very good advice. In addition to, you already said, a bit when it comes to metrics, on paper can be fantastic, but then it can be like, a lot of fluff, can be definitely like, pumped somehow with, comment pods and so on. So in addition to looking at that, are there any other big mistakes that you're seeing brands doing while doing either the process of influencer identification, or also during the campaign itself? Like, are you noticing anything else that whenever you see like, oh wow, wait a minute, like that's is gonna bring you to the wrong path here?
Yeah. I mean, I see, some of the things that I still notice a lot, again, is like just having the wrong partners, like going after the most popular person just because they're very popular in the moment, but were they really a fit for the brand? And a lot of times that, answer is no. You might go find and uncover people that aren't super popular yet, but maybe they have a really strong community. So again, it goes back to that. Spend the time to find the right people. Don't just kind of like go quickly pick a few folks because you feel they're influential or because they have a following and use them with their brand. I still think there's a ton of work to be done there. Also, pricing is a huge thing that I see, and I have a lot of conversations about this. I think there's still a lot of brands that don't necessarily, have like an internal pricing model, or might not even be comfortable kind of coming to the table with like negotiation the way people who maybe have been doing this longer are. I fully believe that brands always need to come to the table understanding what deliverables they're interested in, and what budget they want to spend. And you can have kind of a low price in mind and a high price in mind, but you need to be thinking about that and having that ready. Whether you're using cost per models, really depends on the goal of your campaign, whether you have tons of data from past partnerships and you kind of have ranges and understandings based on all of the different things that go into it. But there's still a lot of people that just aren't comfortable with pricing. So they're asking influencers, how much do you want? And there's a lot of overpaying. Here's my thing. I know people are always like, oh my gosh, like overpaying and you don't want to pay. That's absolutely not it. I think it's so critical that we are paying influencers fairly across the board for the work they do, for the value they bring to brand partnerships, campaigns, to all of that. I just think it's also important that we're not overpaying because people don't necessarily understand, because that can also set bad precedents. And ultimately it can hurt the influencer's career long term. If someone pays them 7 times when another brand or any other brand's going to pay, and they now think that is their kind of, baseline, they might start to get turned away more. It might just hurt their bottom line in the long term.
Is your brand ready to amplify its reach? Well, the Influencer Marketing Factory is here for you. We are a global influencer marketing agency helping brands ignite their growth. From influencer identification to campaign strategy, handling legalities and agreements, to managing shipping and logistics, we got you all covered. We work with hundreds of brands across different verticals, from Fortune 500 companies to direct-to-consumer brands. And we don't just stop there. With detailed ROI analysis, we help brands like yours measure success, transforming impressions into conversions. You can find us at theinfluencermarketingfactory.com or just searching the Influencer Marketing Factory on Google. No, very good points on, every there is like influencers related, right? And so let's go on the other side, on the creators, because there's a lot of interest, a lot of demand for CGC, so creator generated content that is also different from user generated content. Like many people use at the same time, but we can also dive in a bit more in that. Let's start with the creator generated content. How do you approach that there? Also, do you have a sort of a way to go all the time that is the same? Do you follow certain steps? It depends by the type of brands. Do you have any pieces of advice on that as well when it comes to creators?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's such a new term, to be honest. I feel like a lot of people are using it different, just like UGC. People have kind of tried to change the true meaning of that. For us, it's, we use creators and partnerships. We, utilize them for their channels. We also utilize them in a much broader mix. So the content we're using, it's potentially used in paid. It's used in our own channels. There's different paid channels considered for. There's different own channels like email and things of that nature. So for me, the biggest kind of opportunity in influencer marketing is pulling it out of its own silo and not just thinking of creators as, people that we can utilize because their channels have reach, but it's, that kind of reach, it's, kind of their communities, but also the content you get out of it should be a part of a much broader content marketing strategy. And what can you do with it? We don't at this point use any creators just to kind of capture content that we use, or any photographers or anything, which is kind of what I see. I know a lot of brands do and are kind of trying to rebrand that as UGC, which I fully believe it's not. I'm an OG person in the social space since it's begun. So I will always fully go hard for UGC being something that comes from our brand fans and something that we're not paying for or expecting.
No, in fact, one of the things that I wanted also to ask you is about, content that is generated by customers. They're not necessarily influencers nor creators, right? There are just people that love your product, might have 12 followers, but they're so passionate about your content, your service or product. They just go out there. Especially now, with TikTok, with the affiliate marketing, right? You can easily just put the, shopping tag there, and then maybe have 10,000 followers, but the video goes super viral, and it gets in front of millions of people. And again, at the end of the day, it's just a customer very happy about the product there.
Yeah.
Any idea on how to approach, let's say, brands listening today? How would they take the most, right, of this content that sometimes is generated out there and some brands are not really doing anything about it. So how would you use those content?
Yeah. So you've got to have social listening set up so that you can find it as it's happening, whether they're tagging you or just maybe mentioning you. Have that set up so that you can find that, quickly. Make sure that if your social and influencer teams are separate, make sure you guys are working in lockstep. My team works all together and kind of has hybrid roles. So it's very simple. Like if UGC happens, like we know right away. We look at it, we kind of assess, like, is this something we'd like to reshare? Is this something that would be good for paid? And then we'll reach out to that person and we'll, kind of let them know the potential opportunities, whether it's a reshare or, if it's for paid. And we always have documentation that we have people sign. Sometimes people will say, yeah, we'd like totally reshare it, or, totally fine to put it on paid because they're just passionate about the message. We do have a UGC budget set aside so that if someone does ask, like, hey, if you're using it in paid, would this be something that basically we can, get some money from? And that's something I think is totally fair. And I think that's definitely very different from paying for it in advance when it's not that genuine story. But paying in appreciation to use content from a brand fan that you're then going to put in ads, I think is something that is very important. Definitely should be done more. So always have kind of a UGC budget aside to use. There's still a lot of brands that aren't even asking their, to use the UGC, which first and foremost is like a big no. Always ask, always build the relationship regardless, like build that relationship with the customer who obviously like really loves the brand. But also you just have to be respectful. Like just because they talked about you doesn't mean the content is yours to use however you want or to own. It's still very much theirs. So it definitely has to be a conversation.
Makes sense. I know, especially like, they're so like raw and authentic sometimes. And I don't like just give you like a real feedback on whatever, right? Because they're not paid, right? So it's very interesting type of content. We talk about, the past of influencer marketing. We talk about the present. Let's finish with the future. So are you noticing any trends that we should know about? Anything that you're very excited about the next future of influencer marketing?
I kind of hinted at earlier, but I think the biggest thing is just thinking about influencers outside of kind of that singular focus of using their channels and how does that do? And then like the campaign's wrapped up and you're done. But it's truly pulling influencer marketing into your content marketing strategy and thinking about it as a content type versus just a campaign. When you do that, it can be a part of much broader kind of omni-channel brand strategies where you're, reaching customers in different ways. Like you still have kind of core messaging and things that you're kind of talking about or things that you want to achieve, but you're able to utilize that content in a way that aligns with so much more. For us, a huge goal for me has always been, how can we get the most out of this content? Because if you find the right partners, it's going to be like great authentic content. It might have really great storytelling if that's your goal, or it might just be a great highlight of a product, whatever the case may be, or whatever your goal is. But that content is going to likely really resonate with your customers if you did your job right. So why are we not using it in, paid social, obviously owned social? I mean, that's, table stakes. Mobile, paid ads, programmatic, whatever the case is. Why is it not getting tested in so many other places? I always say the customer journey is not linear. So if you're giving people different types of interesting content throughout their customer journey, there's just more opportunities to build relationships with them, to kind of win them over, to give them, whether it's education on the product or excitement for the product. Just really, again, it's just let's get influencer marketing outside of this box and really think about the true value that it can bring to the table for a brand. And it's really thinking more social first. Influencer happens obviously on social. So if we put more of a social first lens on brand marketing, but brands are going to have so much more opportunity in terms of like content creation, reaching customers, building relationships. So I'm definitely starting to see some brands do that, but really excited for more to jump into that.
I can see that happening already. Like, when all the shift, like, of budgets from the traditional to social media, going from a nice to have to a must have, going
Yeah.
from like a one time off activation to a long term partnership with the same influencer for maybe yearly contracts and so on. So,
Yeah.
I think that is happening already, and also I'm very curious to see what is going to happen in the next 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Nycole, for joining me today, for sharing your knowledge with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
This was the Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory, and I'll see you next week.